I am joined by the new manager of the Chicago White Sox, Tony La Russa. Congratulations, Tony.
Thank you.
First question, what made you decide to come back to managing now?
Since I retired and stay close to the game upstairs, it's been a number of times. Maybe a large number of times where you're up there and you're not in the action and your hands are tied and you think, boy, I miss it. I never missed it enough that if somebody called, I seriously considered it. But I think that finally this time I have been missing it enough, and then the perfect opportunity, which was going back to Chicago, especially the rare opportunity to come back to a team that's talented and just had a winning year and it's got that kind of potential. Most times people get hired with clubs that are struggling, and you got to go through that process. This is an opportunity any manager would jump at.
What do you like most about that team you're inheriting?
I like the completeness of it. And by that, I mean, look like they can score runs, looks like they can stop the other club from scoring. The easiest way to win is pitch and defend. The less you give up, the less you have to score. But I also like the completeness of the makeup of the roster. They've got a nice blend of veterans who know what it is to be successful in the big leagues, and they also got some really exciting young players. Because I grew up with the mentoring system, watching the veteran embrace the young guy and really show him, look, this is how you survive in the big leagues, and this is how you ultimately become the veteran that goes back and teaches. So they've got a real good mix there. To me, is a big plus.
How do you think your managerial style will have changed, if at all, since the last time you were in the chair?
That's an interesting question, and I think that's the benefit of being upstairs, because I know that there's been some concern that I've been away from baseball. Well, actually, I haven't been away from baseball, and I've been watching the games. There is a different style that you see at times, and I've wondered how would I adjust to that different style. And I think in the end, the object is to win the game. And what I was always taught was, as you watch the game, you'll start to get a feel whether it's a game that runs are going to be scored or runs are at a premium. And you make decisions as a manager accordingly. Sometimes you play for a bigger inning if you don't want to sacrifice out. Sometimes, just getting one run in a certain situation could be the difference. So I think that part of the philosophy from watching games, that doesn't change. I think there is a value sometimes at looking at crooked numbers. And there are other times that one run, if you can add a run once you're ahead, you don't have to add two or three, just a run here and a run there. And that's the difference. So I think that I know there's going to be some questions. I believe in putting the ball in play. So I've been mortified by the number of times teams strike out more than they get hits. I don't think that's winning baseball. I think you get penalized for that, especially against good teams with good pitchers. Got to put the ball in place at a lot of important times.
How would you describe to people who've not seen you manage, which I don't know who that would be as a baseball fan, but if somebody hadn't seen you manage, how would you describe your managerial style?
I think you adjust your style to the personnel. I always believed it was a we thing. The coaching staff and I, as a unit, have a very simple to explain responsibility, and that's to put the players in a position to succeed. So if you evaluate what you have, you play to that. If you evaluate what you don't have, you try to improve them. And it all starts, great believer in the leadership has to come from not just the staff, but from the players. And it's best, the most productive culture you have is when the team embraces the family kind of environment. You're all playing for each other. Nobody's excluded. nobody, the clubhouse men, the trainers, manager, coaches, the players, we all are pulling together. It's a very strong, in fact, my favorite way to describe it, when you have that kind of culture, that kind of chemistry, however you describe it, that's an intangible, but you can actually feel it. And it's been described as a tangible, intangible. That's the number one focus on clubs that we've been on for the bunch of years. And my understanding, and I've talked to quite a few people who have watched or been a part of the White Sox, that's exactly the culture they have. So we're going to try and make it happen all over again.
To that point about the culture, the White Sox used Change the Game in their marketing campaign last year, and part of that was predicated on the energy that Tim Anderson has. What do you make of the way Tim Anderson plays baseball?
I'm glad we have him. The number one thing you look for, if I'm a fan or if I'm on the coaching side, you look for passion. It takes the talent to the level it's supposed to be at. You can have a very talented guy that doesn't have passion, doesn't have energy and adrenaline that's generated by the competition. That guy's never going to achieve. Talent's never going to be skillful, never going to be productive as a winner. Someone like Tim is exactly the kind of player that you want. The fact that he gets excited when he does well is exactly what you look for. I mean, somebody asked me about that the other day, and I said, well, remember, we had Dennis Eckersley, and when he got the third out, he gave that very emotional fist pump. To me, the key is your emotion sincere, and do you direct it towards the winning or losing the game? If you're upset because you got beat, look, you should be. If you win, if you get excited because you do something to help win, that's good. Sometimes you get the feeling that it's insincere, and some guys maybe trying to build a brand of something. I don't think that happens very often. I think sincerity, and that's what you see most of the time. I'll add this PS. The game has changed so much over the years because there's so much attention every day. Everything you do is being photographed, right? You don't do anything in hiding anymore. So if you do something good, you're going to get publicity. If you do something bad, you're going to get beaten up. So with that, there's been a lot of pressure on players. And when they respond to the pressure in an enthusiastic way, or if they get upset, throw a bat. I think that's just a sign of the times. And I would rather have the emotion and the passion than not to have it.
So to that point, where does your sincere energy come from, and where is it directed? Like, what the sincerest part of Tony La Russa's energy goes where and is what?
Recognizing my responsibility, and I always include the coaching staff. We're a unit. We are supposed to put players in a position to succeed. That's what the organization signed us on for. That's what fans want us to do. So every day it's it's a special responsibility. And I've learned over the years, my mentors, that if we do our job well, then we can contribute to players producing and winning games. And if we drop the ball, then we will be a negative. So the emotion and the adrenaline, the motivation comes every day as a staff, that we're going to be out there paying attention, trying to provide that edge, which is what coaching and decision making can help a team, because the players, they're men, not machines. And sometimes, you got to tweak them a little bit. Maybe they get a little bit off the path. So it's a wonderful responsibility. It's an important one. So sometimes, because I don't smile much in the dugout, because I'm concerned that I'm not going to fulfill that responsibility.
So I remember reading years ago about you being in the dugout with note cards and stats and matchups and things like that. And now there are people who say, well, he's 76, so he won't use analytics. Where are you on the statistical spectrum now?
I was raised that information was king, and it's still king. It's just a way that it was explained to me, and it still resonates, is when you prepare for a test, you study for a test. You don't just make it superficial and look at a few cliff notes on here. That you actually get into the material that you've been taught, and you study it to the best of your ability. And then what? Then you take the test. Well, during our whole time managing and coaching with our staff, we were always embracing information. And I mean, that's one thing I've always given Jerry Reinsdorf credit. And then from then on, the Haas family and Bill DeWitt and the general managers that work for us, they appreciated the positive effect of a coaching staff. And you got to give that coaching staff, the materials, and that was our study. So guys like Charlie Lau, Dave Duncan, Dave McKay, these great coaches over the years. And as a manager, the guys that I learned from, they all, Earl Weaver with his matchups, all these guys. Dick Williams was a great mentor to me. Dick started taking notes. And what you do is you learn from the materials you have, or you create, and then you apply them. The place that I do think it's important to understand is a lot of the preparation, and I understand that the formulas now, the information today is sophisticated and very helpful, and that helps your preparation. But you need to understand, once the game starts, then it's men, not machines, and you have to be adapting to what you see. It's called observational analytics. How does this pitcher player look? How's the game? How does it smell? How does it feel? So embrace the information. The more, the better. Looking forward to working now with the complicated, exotic kind of formulas and machines. But in the end, you want to be able to take that and look at a player for what he is.
What did you learn from your time in the front office about the state of the game in 2020?
Well, I learned that I could never be, I don't know how those guys survive, because once the game starts, it's torture up there because you can't do a thing about it. But I do have a very fresh appreciation. I actually go back to Commissioner Seelig give me a chance to go to Major League Baseball, and understanding there for a couple and a half years, the enormity of what happens at the Major League Baseball level. But then being with Arizona and then Boston and then with the Angels, you appreciate the difficulties of scouting, with whether it's free agent, professional, player development, the way the economics of the game are today. It's so difficult sometimes to make trades, the evaluations you make about how you construct your roster. I got a really up close and personal view of that, and I really believe it's more difficult than the job that the coaches and I have down on the field. So that's why I'm glad to leave upstairs and go downstairs.
What motivates Tony La Russa?
Well, I've been a baseball lifer since I was a kid. I love the game. So what motivates me is to understand how fortunate, you hear it all the time, if you can, your occupation is something that you love. Not everybody has that opportunity. And I've been fortunate to do something I love. So it's not, I really don't work baseball. It's play baseball. So my obligation and my motivation is to take everything that I have been taught over the years and what I've learned from my own experiences, contribute it to the game, which very simply, and this is my dad used to tell it, the more confusing it gets, the simpler you keep it. It's our team against their team in a baseball game, and the team with the most runs wins, the other team loses. So just dedicate yourself to that simplicity, and the great unknown. Like right now, everybody's at 0. We're all tied for first place. Nobody knows what's going to happen next season. I always love that the intrigue and the challenge, the mystery of that. Never got tiresome. That wasn't why I quit. I quit for other reasons, and I'm excited to get back to that challenge and that mystery.
Who are the players you got very young in your previous stops who you're most proud of their development?
Well, I always say we, because it was a coaching thing, and I was involved with 6 rookie years, and they were coached really well. And as a manager, it's just recognizing what they can do and not do, and then go to one and away from the other. But I really thought that I feel best. I think the best thing I feel is what I described early. The relationships that existed in Chicago, Oakland, and St. Louis. Once I retired and I got more around, the way that the mutual respect and affection that we have for all of ours, the coach to coach, coach to player, player to manager, that to me is the most important thing that produces the best results. But what I saw was that the great coaching staffs, they honored the star player, they honored the complimentary player. They were all contributors. Like I say, it gets, if you piece it together, there's a lot of pieces, but it comes together in a simple way. Your team against the other team. Do your best to win. If you win, enjoy it. If you lose, tip your cap.
Before we let you go, I'm looking at you with a Sox hat on, and it feels like 3.5 decades ago. So how has Tony La Russa changed from then, when you last had the Sox hat on, to now?
I can think of a couple of answers. The basic one is not really much at all. I mean, the way that I approached my responsibility and our coach's responsibility then and through the 30 years is exactly how I feel today. I think, though, if you take the most important lesson that I learned from people like Dick Williams, from George Kissel, for example, each game that you watch or you're a part of is a tremendous learning experience. So if you've been in 5,000 of them, my experiences have improved the way we create relationships and hopefully get players in a position to succeed. The most important, we always stress personalization. We want each player to personalize their commitment, their promise to our team, right? Well, you do the same as a manager. So, my commitment is to the Chicago White Sox is, I'm gonna look in the mirror and know that I gave my best shot. And I know what that feels like. I'm excited to do it again.
What makes you such a good manager of bullpens? We hear that a lot. How do you manage a bullpen?
Well, I think the key is the pitching coach and the bullpen coach. And it's no secret, I've bragged on it thousands of times. For 29 years, Dave Duncan was the architect of our pitching staff. And because I was a crappy infielder and didn't know much about pitching, I learned a lot just talking to him and watching him. And so there's a lot of, when we started in '79, bullpens are already starting to be important, and then it's grown and grown and grown. So that now, quite often, in my time, 10 years ago, very often the last 9 outs were the bullpen. Now it's sometimes more. So what you want to do is you want to be able to construct a bullpen that has a lot of weapons, a lot of various diverse kind of abilities, because the game is so fluid, the competition's so fluid, that now there's not one cookie cutter formula that applies against everybody. And I think what you do in communicating with your coach, your pitching coach, your bullpen coach, is that you address what guys can do, and sometimes you coach them up. And if you can't coach them up, you try to avoid them. It's not rocket science. I mean, it's just paying attention to what you got, watching the game closely. If there's one thing I think I would add to this is the end of the game, whatever you take that to be, sometimes the 6th inning to the 9th or the 7th to the 9th, is so volatile that if you don't understand how changeable it can be in an instant, then you will be slow to get ahead of it. You won't be ahead of it. So you constantly are playing the what if game, and you're taking it to 3-4 hitters 2 innings ahead. And if you do that, it slows it down and it simplifies your decisions.
Lastly, Chicago, the city very well. you know, Chicagoans, sometimes they'll see you out to eat. They'll ask you a question that maybe isn't even like appropriate for the moment. Like they'll just go up to you and talk to you like your best friends. So say a Chicagoan comes up to you and just says, you know, they see you out in February or whatever. They say, "Hey, I think the game's passed you by. Why are you managing again?" What's your response to that Chicagoan?
I think it's a fair question. And all I can say to them is, I got the chance. I hope you give me the opportunity to show that I'm still with it. But there hadn't been one criticism of the potential of being hired that I think I have a problem with. I think they're all legitimate questions, and but I've got this opportunity. I just know that going into the season, uh, it's mysterious, and we're ready to tackle it.
Tony La Russa, thank you so much for the time, and good luck this season.
That was a great question. I enjoyed it. Thank you.